space needs analysis of 18,000 to 24,000. We looked at various other state library standards and ranges, so you can look at a range of, an average of those ranges range from 10,000 to over 14,000 square feet. But, so I think part of this is really just to discuss that the sizing of library is maybe as much of an art as it is a science. And certainly the Public Library Association sort of discounts having any formulas, but really looking at what the community needs are and then responding to the community needs. And then from there, we started developing floor plan options for the committee to look at. We actually came up with four different options, and oftentimes each option might have had multiple sub-schemes in that. As we worked with the library steering committee, they chose two different schemes to present to the city council, which was design option 1A and 4A. And so I'll show you first the 1A, which is really working within the confines of the existing library. So as you all know, the shaded area is the existing library. So under this scheme, we're keeping the main entrance where it currently is, but we're taking the children's area and transforming that into a meeting room. We also added another small work area and a kitchenette in this area to help facilitate meetings. And then we also are looking at redoing the circulation desk to create a more space as you come into the library. And then we were looking at locating the children's area down at the south end of the library, keeping a lot of the book stacks on the east end like they currently are. But then also Brandy was very gracious in giving up part of her office so we could have an expanded young adult area. So with this, with this one, the approach was try to stay within the existing confines of the walls, but also minimize renovation cost as much as possible. And we'll get into that a little bit more when we look at cost. So we did have some options on cost for adding windows as well, but the base price didn't include adding windows. And so this is an interior rendering of the library, and it does show the windows in place because you can actually look, you can see out through the windows to the building across the street. And that's page 52 from the report. And then this is looking out at the south end with the new windows that would be added in the new children's area. And then this is looking back towards the new circulation desk. And then this is looking towards the main collection area. As we're going through the study, we're going back through our owner-architect agreement, I noticed that it had called for a new entrance to the north or northeast or east. So this option 1B was developed in response to that. It basically has about the same plan as 1A, keeping the circulation desk where it is, taking the children's and making that a meeting room, but it did provide a new entry out to the east, and then adding a storage room here and a small addition for a young adult here. But then these are book stacks. This is children's and book stacks and computer stations. So it had that new entrance to the east because I wanted to make sure I fulfilled the agreement between the city and BCDM architects. We also had developed an exterior rendering of what that new east entry would look like, and then also looking back towards the courthouse. And then this is the, looking at the interior of that, at the circulation desk, looking towards the south end with the children's, looking at from the children's back towards the circulation desk, and then looking towards the staff area. That option was presented to the steering committee. There was a motion to present that one in lieu of 1A. That motion was defeated, so we're sticking with the steering committee sticking with the original recommendation of 1A and 4A, but I just wanted you to see that, just to know that we did fulfill our contract in that we did look at an option with an east or northeast entry. So 4A does have an addition that would increase the size of the library by approximately 50%. So right about here is the line of the existing library building. So all of this would be a proposed addition. You can see it goes right out to the sidewalk on the east side. It goes right up to the sidewalk on the north side as well. So it's main, as you know, the existing library and City Hall have north entries. So this one has a north entry. It comes into a lobby area where you can come into a meeting room that also then can be accessed from the children's. This is an expanded children's. You can see it's quite a bit expanded over the existing circulation desk right here. New toilets within this, within the library proper, rather than relying on the toilets in the City Hall. A small conference room here, work area for the library staff, and then an adult area, a young adult area, and a maker space, as well as a couple of study rooms, and then a cluster of technology workstations there. We actually had two different exterior views. These are just slightly different in terms of what that would look like with the new north entry. And this has just a slight variation of that. This is looking at the children's area and looking with the windows out towards the east. And then another interior rendering looking at the seating and computer area. And then this is the main sort of entry as you come into the library. That would take you down through the existing library, looking at the entry and circulation desk. So then we're looking at the cost of all of these options. So Nick, if you could pass out the cost. This is more detailed. Within your report, you had a summary of the cost. This is a more detailed cost breakdown of option 1A, 1B, and 4A. And so, again, option 1A was trying to keep the renovation cost down as low as possible. So you can see that there's an actual renovation construction cost in terms of the base price. It was only a little bit over $200,000. We had a little over $200,000 in library furnishings and technology. So that came up to a total construction equipment cost of about $436,000. Then you add professional service fees and contingency, that gets you up to about $540,000. But we did have some alternate prices of adding insulation to the exterior walls to make sure that it meets today's energy codes, adding windows at the exterior walls, and then updating the rooftop HVAC units so it meets the current codes regarding the refrigerant. And so that would take the project cost up to a little bit over $712,000. Looking at 1B, 1B was sort of taking the existing library and redoing it, adding new mechanical system, new flooring, new ceilings, new lighting, upgrading the electrical service, which should be updated. And so that added up to about $860,000, and then about $250,000 for the addition. And you can see about $300,000 for furnishings and technology. So that's a total cost of about $1.7 million. Just one point of note, in the summary, you also have the cost of added fire sprinklers. It's a little bit of a gray whether if we would do the work, if you'd have to add fire sprinklers or not. So these costs don't show fire sprinklers, but the summary does show what it would cost if we have to add fire sprinklers for all of the options. So then 4A, again, is sort of taking what's in the existing building, renovating it completely, putting a new mechanical system, new electrical service, and then a much larger addition of about 5,600 square feet. And so you can see the total construction cost is about $1.8 million, and then adding about $550,000 for furnishings and technology. And so that takes that cost up to $2.9 million. So I think it's, as we, and again, this is a summary of the cost. So that's the end of the PowerPoint presentation. And, the committee was, there's some good discussion. Certainly, as we've talked before, what is a library in the city of Carroll has some ambiguity to it. There's different groups that favor a much larger library. There's other groups that favor a library about the same size. I was certainly hoping that through this process, getting everybody to a common table, that there'd be dialogue and there'd be maybe a shifting in attitude or position. But that hasn't happened. But I think the important thing is to remember that all the groups are doing what they think is best for the city of Carroll. And so that's the difficulty, is when you've got groups that are doing what they think is best for the city of Carroll, but they're not on the same page on what that is, it becomes very difficult to make progress and get anything done. And so I don't want to speak for the library group, but I do know that I think it was nice that they let us know in the steering committee meeting that they voted for 1A and 4A as what the best of what the committee did, but they don't feel like either one is adequate to meet the needs of Carroll Library. So that's the end of my presentation. I'm certainly I'm willing to answer any questions that you might have, but I would say probably right now there's probably not a strong consensus to do any one particular scheme over another that you could probably possibly get a majority on.
Okay. And I think, do you feel like maybe there's just a bit more of an educational process too for citizens? You had mentioned that just the differentials between what some people perceive as services of the library today and maybe some of the services that have been provided in the past, and we need to maybe catapult forward. Do you think that that's some of that as well?
Well, certainly that could be part of it, though I know, certainly the city has looked at, and the foundation has looked at studies by Cosgrove and I think it was the University of Iowa that did studies that showed that people are pretty happy with the library. So is it just that they're too content with what they have, or is it just that they don't know what they're missing? And that's the question that's difficult to answer.
Okay.
Could you go over the figure, the 1A with the heating and the ventilation one more time? The 1A was just kind of redoing what we have?
Yes, in terms of 1A, one of the goals with that was to try to, I think, well, let me take a step back. I think, certainly Carroll has always been, had a rather large collection of books. And so, if you look at some of the library standards, they want to have a collection of books, but they want a balance of books and space so that there's space for programs. And so I think Carroll's always been short on space for programs. And so certainly one of the intents, the intent of 1A was to try to carve out some more space, like the meeting rooms, so that there'd be more space for programs. So as Brandy and I were working on that option, we were trying to minimize the overall cost of that option. So we were trying to save as much of the existing walls as possible. We were trying to use the existing ceiling as much as possible. You have pretty new carpet in the library, so we weren't trying to look at changing the carpet, but just sort of patching it where we were making some wall modifications. And then probably repainting everything. And we were trying to leave the mechanical system alone as much as possible with that. We do have the options of certainly, again, the children's area the mechanical system there was designed for assembly occupancy in terms of numbers of people. So we did have an option to boost the mechanical system on that to handle the additional bodies that would be in that space as an assembly occupancy.
When your engineers looked at the heating and ventilation system, it's something that's going to have to be changed eventually anyway?
Well, yeah, everything mechanical has a life cycle, and certainly certainly, and not everything wears out at the same point in time. So the mechanical system has newer boilers, but the condensing units that are on the roof aren't as new, and they're at the end of their life cycle. The manufacturer that made them originally has been bought out one or two times, so they question whether replacement parts are readily available. And then they also are using the type of refrigerant that's not allowed anymore.
So then 1B, because of the redesign on the inside, you would redo all of the heating and ventilation at that time, thus that being a significant majority of that cost.
Well, certainly it would be a significant cost. It was also then redoing ceilings, redoing lights, adding a new electrical service, because the electrical service is undersized.
Okay.
Can you elaborate? You made a comment that there's not a strong consensus. You said a majority is not possible. What were you referring to?
Yeah, I don't know. I said I don't. And if I said a majority is not possible, I probably misspoke. I'm saying I don't know if a majority is achievable in terms of coming up with a plan that you can move forward with successfully.
Bob, in your numbers comparing 1A and 1B, in this report, and it's lengthy, and I know we all have it, we went through it, the mechanical, the electrical, plumbing, we have some obsolete mechanical, plumbing, electrical situations. You mentioned the electrical box, et cetera. The coolant is no longer allowed. I mean, it's a very solid building, you indicated, but these systems are, if not already obsolete, soon to become obsolete. The parts we may not even be able to buy parts. Now, in 1A, those problems were not addressed, and the costs were not added in, correct? Except for the meeting room, you added.
The meeting room we had, but we also had on the next page of this, we did have a cost of replacing the condensing units on the roof.
Okay. But with 1B, you do more extensive replacement of these issues. And then I believe you also brought up that the doorways, et cetera, are not ADA compliant.
Correct.
So that is another issue. I mean, we have just an older area that needs to be made compliant, correct?
Correct.
And those costs, when we look at the back of 1B, though, these items are fixed.
Correct.
And I noticed they cost a sizable amount. The construction costs are $560,000, somewhere over $500,000, fixing all these issues, which will have to be addressed at some point, either piecemeal or all at once, comes in at over $500,000. So half of the construction cost is just fixing an older building. When you have the 1.1 million, when you look at the numbers, the mechanical, plumbing, and electrical are around half of that. And then the construction itself, a renovation, and et cetera, is the balance.
Correct.
Correct? And then you also mentioned that 1B was developed in order to create an option 1 that complies with our contract and fits the criteria of the contract. Is that correct? That's why it was developed. I think you mentioned that on page 22. Okay.
Right.
So 1B complies with the contract. It fixes old mechanical, plumbing, electrical, so it's getting an upgrade as well as a facelift, and then that new entrance that the contract called for.
Correct.
Okay, so that is all a part of the total you come up here. Okay, thank you.
Any additional questions from Mr. Mabry this evening relating to the study? Any work that the commission did? Committee did a very good job. I was able to attend most of the meetings. I know many of you were able to be there, even those of you that were not on the committee. I wanted to say thank you to you for your time and being present, for lining up the volunteers. I've talked to quite a few of the citizens, actually, that have served on that committee, and for many of them, it was very eye-opening to go through that kind of a process. Many of them had not been through that type of a process before, and I think they felt like they went away more educated about the library and what it takes in the public works side of things to try to drive towards a decision. But certainly found that it wasn't quite as easy as just sitting down with a contractor and saying, I want to do a new kitchen at my house. It's definitely a lot more involved in that, for sure, and there's a lot of these numbers and these studies and things that go into it. Any other questions while we have Bob here this evening? Okay.
I'm going to make a motion that we consider consider the option 1B of BCDM, remodel of the existing library and add a new entrance of the east and northeast side of the library. And the entrance should be significant entrance that has strong visual appeal, not to exceed $1.8 million, with a designated funding source of general obligation bonds requiring a citizen vote on November 3rd, 2015.
Second.
There is a motion and a second. Seaman?
Yes.
Fleshner?
No.
Jensen?
Yes.
Tate?
Yeah.
Cotts?
No.
Haley?
No.
3-3. Motion fails.
Okay.
I think I'd like to make a quick comment here. The public, Bob did a very thorough job of reviewing the materials and pulled together all the information from the studies. And at one of the meetings, a little over a year ago, I said the line in the sand for me was allowing a public vote. And I still believe in that. And 1B complied with the contract. The University of Iowa study indicates 65% satisfied, very satisfied with the library. There is no negative culture toward the library. It is supported. You can see it in the numbers of people attending the children and adult programs and in their responses. I'd like to say also, I wish this would have gone into the thought process before the vote, but the public has been paying for all these studies, except for the $7,000 that was generously given by the foundation. And they have participated in record numbers. They have fully cooperated. We have done these studies to tap into what they want. We keep telling them, please participate because we want to know what you think. And then we blindside them and not let them vote on their library. They have not only participated in the process, they have paid for it. They pay the salaries with their tax dollars to the tune of over $400,000 a year. So they pay for the studies, they participate in the studies, their tax dollars fund the library, and then we use and discard them. None of us has a crystal ball. I don't know what would happen, but my point is the public deserves to vote on a library that's called a public library. They have done everything they can to help us along, and now we've just slammed the door in their faces by not allowing them to vote. I want to thank Tom and Eric for helping with this process, and I want the public to know we did everything we could to bring it to a vote of the public. And I want to thank the public for their support of the library. They have been phenomenal. So that's it.
Okay. At this time, we've received the report. If there's nothing else on this matter, then, yes, sir?
I just got a few questions following Carolyn's statement, because there's just a couple things I want to highlight on. We had...
Could you
can
go
I wait?
ahead and state your name? No, go ahead and state your name.
Jacob Fiskus, sorry.
Thank you.
I'm a resident of Carroll, business owner, and I am on the Board of Trustees for the Public Library. And I guess one question I have is we hired, like you said, we hired experts, people who do this for a living. They go from town to town and are hired to evaluate the services for the community, and they evaluate it at a statewide level, a county level, and a city level. So even though there are things with, surveys with residents, why do we ignore those experts entirely and just say, you're wrong? 18,000 square
Jacob,
feet
I'm
with
going to
Wilson.
interrupt you there. The experts, Himmel and Wilson, promoted a scientifically valid mail survey. They pushed for that. The experts are telling us to survey the public in order to discern what will garner a 60% vote. So that is a part of the advice the experts are giving us.
Right. So
we were following the advice of the experts. And if I'm wrong, jump in, but Bill Wilson promoted his mail survey because it was scientifically valid. Jeff Schott promoted his University of Iowa survey, saying it was scientifically valid. Bill Wilson was astounded and said he received record responses. Carroll responded in record numbers to his mail survey, the biggest response rate he had ever received in his career. So he was very proud of that component of his survey. So excuse me, I just
right.
wanted to set the record
And
straight.
you're not wrong there, and I'm going to hit on that,
No,
too.
I'm not.
He also made a comment, I don't have a direct quote, about the ill attitude towards the library. And this is an education process. If we want something that actually meets the needs of all the citizens, like it was said scientifically, this is an educational process. I think it starts with you guys as a council, as a government, to get behind something and say, you know what? We know we need 18 to 24,000 square feet. We all agree on that. How are we going to do it? Because we could raise so much money if we had to. If we all got behind something, we all got together, we could do anything. I really think that. And I just think that this plan from the start, when we capped it at $1.8 million, we all took our eye off the ball. And we did not evaluate the services to the citizens. We just focused on a price tag first. It still could be $1.8 million after we fundraise. I think we just ignored all that scientific evidence, and we're just trying to brush this under the rug, and I don't think that's right.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Jacob, for your points.
Good evening.
Hello.
My name is Summer Parrott. I am a mother of 3 young children. I also am a child development specialist by trade, and I'm also a marriage and family therapist. So I know a lot about child education. Speaking firsthand to the response of families, of citizens of Carroll, responses to the survey. In my career as a child development specialist, I will tell you that I conducted surveys from families about their experiences with early childhood education. Specifically speaking, with low-income families, I would take them a book into their home and I would push for them to read to their children. And I would go back into their homes and I would say, tell me about your experience with reading to your children. I would take them one book, and it may be the only book that they had in their home. And I would say, tell me about your experience reading this book to your child. Were you satisfied reading this book? And I may get 100% feedback from these families, and they would say, this was great. We love this book. It was a great experience. I am fully satisfied with this book that you brought me. I am fully satisfied with what I have now to read to my child. I have one book in my home, and I am fully satisfied. My 3-year-old, my 1-year-old, my 2-year-old is fully satisfied with their literary experience. They're fully satisfied. I feel like they're totally prepared to go to preschool with this one book that you have brought me into my home. Were they fully satisfied? Absolutely. Was it 100% better than what they had the week before I brought them that book? Absolutely. I'm not going to doubt that what they had was 100% better than the week before when they had 0 books in their home. Does that mean that if I had brought them 3 books, their experience wouldn't have been 300% better than the week before when I was there? Absolutely not. People in Carroll are satisfied with the library that they have. We have a great library. There's nobody in this room that's going to tell you that we don't have a great library. We have great librarians. We have great staff. We have great citizens in Carroll, and they're going to make the best of what we have. That we're going to stand behind our library. We're going to stand behind our staff. We're going to stand behind our families, because that's what small towns do. That's what the people of Carroll are going to do. We're going to respond to our surveys. We're going to brag about our library. We're going to brag about our sports teams. We're going to brag about our pool. We're going to brag about our rec center. We're going to brag about everything, because we're small town proud. That's what Carroll Iowans do. We talk about how great we are. We're not going to put on paper that our library is terrible. We're not going to talk about we go to Des Moines sometimes for story time, or we go to Ames sometime for story time. But we do it, just like we leave town to go shopping. Just like when we want to go back to school shopping, we take our money and we go out of town to do that. We all do it, and we all know that we all do it. The Carroll Library can be better, and we all know that the Carroll Library can be better. We all know that if there was a space in Carroll, in our library for a meeting room, that we would all go use it. But we don't want to talk badly about our town. We don't want to talk badly about our library. And we don't want to wish for things that we might never get. And that's small town pride. So I can understand where you're coming from, saying that the survey reflects 65% of the people that responded are fully happy with our library. Some of those people may not know what's capable or what is on the other side or what may be there. I've traveled to the 7-county area for work for many, many years. I look at their library in comparison to what the Carroll Library is. I look at small town populations and what their libraries are versus what the Carroll Library is. Our library should be bigger. It should offer more to our families. It should offer more to our small town families that we have here, to our youth that are coming into our schools. It should promote more school readiness than what it does. Our children's selection is not adequate for what we're asking our kindergartners and our preschoolers to know when they walk through the doors of our school system. It's not adequate. And I can tell you right now, we do need to depend on the families of Carroll to give us feedback. And you're right, we need to depend on the voices of the Carroll citizens to tell us what we need in a library, but we also need to tell them what their options are. We can't just say, are you satisfied with a library that we've given you that's always been here? We need to be able to tell them, would you like to see a bigger Carroll children's section? Would you like to see more technology? We need to let them know what other options are out there, because if you don't tell them what their tax dollars can go towards or what we're trying to give them, would you like to see art in your library? Would you like to see more puzzles? My daughter, my 3-year-old, when she discovered they had Legos at the library, now she wants to play Legos every time she goes there. ABC Mouse wants to do it every time. Would she have ever asked me, can I go there and play Legos next time? Wouldn't have known it's an option. But now that it's there, it's opening new windows for her every time she goes there. And that's what I want for my children, that's what I want for my family, and that's what I want for other families in Carroll to be able to put on paper. I want more from my library because I know those things are available. So while I appreciate that the study that was done shows satisfaction in the library, I want people to want more from our library because they understand that more is possible from the town of Carroll. Thank you.
Thank you both. Thank you all. And with that, we are going to take this study and we will have this as we move forward into the future. We'll certainly hopefully be able to reflect back on this, and I'm sure that we'll be continuing to welcome some comments from the public over time. Try to answer any of their questions as they come forward. Our final report is the reclassification of position and top of range for the Recreation Center Director. And
Okay. After discussion from the last meeting when we decided to hire Mr. Lippaback to do this, Mr. Mulder was present and listened to your discussion. He took that discussion back with him to Jack Lippaback, and Mr. Lippaback indicated that he was of the feeling that we needed to increase the salary range so that we could entice better candidates than what we've enticed in the past. And I bring that recommendation to you, that the position also be changed from Rec Center Director to Recreation Superintendent. And there was an accompanying sheet that comes with that that would indicate how that fits into the range of other superintendents, with a top of 64,896.38. And then that would be about 75% of that would be the lower range. We would hope to be able to recruit good candidates, and we have to remember that our rec center is unusual in that it is not typical of communities our size, or slightly smaller or larger, to actually have a facility like we have. I think all of you have indicated through your discussion that you had here a few weeks ago that you want the rec center to operate at as high a level as it can. And one of the ingredients in that is to have an engaged recreation center director. And in order to do that, I would recommend to you that we need to move the range up, the salary range, and we also need to move the sense of responsibility to a higher level so that they can encompass all of those programs that are contained in recreational services indoor and outdoor. So I would recommend that you change the position from rec center director to recreation superintendent and set the top of range at $64,896.38.
Hey, Carroll, the responsibilities for the rec center, so superintendent, what changes, how much does that change from the residency director? Are you adding new responsibilities?
All the outdoor activities would be added to that responsibility.
Who's doing those now?
Those are coming under leisure services. Jack, would you like to enter into this discussion?
The lead person did report partially to the rec center director, me also, where this is giving the superintendent, a little bit more discussion, more involvement with that. But also, I think the bigger picture is just bringing it up to a title that's more seen today. If you go look at job descriptions, there's usually a recreation superintendent in most communities. They will just have more, like Carroll said, more responsibility, more leadership. We hope to get someone with this higher salary range to get, some of the more leadership role.
Theoretically, this would integrate all of the activity programs into one person's responsibility so that you don't have an outside activity that's not necessarily feathering in with your indoor activities. Seasonal, rolling them through the seasonal process.
So who's just the leisure director, leisure services director is the one that's doing it now?
They take care of all the outside. They do some inside, but not a lot of inside work.
Gerald, one question. Does this change at all Jack's job description?
No.
Just
Still
people.
He is the overall
He oversees.
supervisor and the overseer of those positions.
Okay.
Somewhat changes the services that would be provided by that recreation superintendent, but at the same time, it doesn't lessen Jack's oversight of
Okay.
all of those.
It's a shifting of roles among other people. He already supervises.
And hopefully gives them more opportunity to manage and control all the people in that system.
Okay.
Where right now, there's a piece here
You
and
see
there's a
it too
piece there.
piecemeal, and it needs to be
And
consolidated.
There's quite a few. There's
Okay.
outside activity,
Okay.
there's inside activity.
That's what I was getting at. How much of
Janitorial
this-
services that are operating differently, and we'll work on the job description
Okay.
for that.
That
but
sounds like a good idea.
generally move that to a point, and it actually what it does is it raises the responsibility and expectations of anyone that we hire in that capacity, and they will have that understanding when they come. Because I'm hearing loud and clear, you want to have the programs and you want them to be at the best level. I'm telling you that in my opinion, this is the best opportunity we have to get there.
Gets us a high-quality person who we have a high set of expectations for, and we can expect them to really improve our services, and right?
That's the goal.
When you had a rec center director 15, 20 years ago, you didn't have a baseball program that's now been taken over by us. You didn't have an aquatic center. You didn't have
Soccer.
a soccer complex.
An
That
aquatic
job
center.
has exploded. Like Gerald alluded to a little bit, and I agree with him completely. For a town of 10,000, we do jobs of much larger communities. We don't have a lot of communities don't have a golf course, cemetery, rec center, aquatic center, all the amenities, over 100 acres of just parkland. So we have a situation here in Carroll because a lot of people have been thinking ahead and were aggressive years ago.
And your responsibilities towards that still,
Yep.
you would still stay the same yet, though?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, let's get you some time to focus more on your roles, Jack.
Should. I've been doing this for a year.
It has to have been an enlightening experience, I would think.
Yes. Summer's been a lot busier.
Okay. Well, then with that, I would look for a motion to change the position of Recreation Center Director to Recreation Superintendent and set the top of range at $64,896.38.
So moved.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Haley?
Yes.
Jensen?
Yes.
Fleschner?
Yes.
Tate?
Yes.
Todd? Seaman?
Yes.
Motion is approved.
Thank you. I trust everyone has read the committee reports. The mayor would just like to once again say thank you and Godspeed to our police chief, as he's already made his way out the door.
He's a goner.
And I'd like to say thank you to all the citizens who came out to root the Carroll Merchants on Friday night. I also want to thank all our generous sponsors and volunteers who have supported the promoter in the Carroll Merchants and made things happen here in town. The Relay for Life is coming up on June 26th, and there are a number of teams and different ways folks can get out and support and be involved. Thank you to the many volunteers, chair people, and donors that make that event so successful and special every year. There is a cleanup at the depot this Wednesday evening. I'd encourage any of our citizens to get out and help or take an opportunity to keep Carroll beautiful, be it in your neighborhood or nearby parks. We have a city employee appreciation picnic for our staff this Thursday, and I just want to say thank you to all of our staff within the city of Carroll. You do a wonderful job serving us every day. I'm impressed with the number of very long-term people we have and their knowledge and their caring of their positions and the work that they do. And finally, I have the opportunity to travel to Washington, D.C. this next week from the 15th to the 17th as part of our Access Washington delegation. One of my primary topics will be water quality regulations, the costly impact it has on our wastewater treatment facility. Our delegation will also be talking about federal transportation funding, EPA zone regulations, expansion of business, and USDA-related topics in both healthcare as well as housing. Any comments from the city council members this evening?
I just got a question for Andy quick. With the current water situation, if we have to send in testing at noon on Wednesday, do we have to wait till the results are back to know if what we're treating for is currently working? Basically, the long question I'm asking is, will it be Thursday or Friday anticipated before we'll know if it's clear to consume the water again, or?
Well, we will take our second set of tests Tuesday at noon, and the results of those will be back Wednesday morning. If all results are negative for bacteria, that would be the end of testing, and the water would be, the boil order would be lifted.
Okay.
That's the earliest that it can be. If there are positive results for bacteria, then we'll proceed and address that as we go.
That 18-hour window, is that based on a standard work day, or is that a legitimate 18 hours?
That's the incubation period for bacteria.
Okay.
So the test actually takes the 18 hours from the time they initiate it until they can accurately read the results.
What they do, Mike, is they will take a sample of that and they place that onto an agar medium for that bacteria to grow on. It's usually within about 24 hours that if there is bacteria, it will show up in that medium. You won't get an identification for another 24 hours later, but if the bacteria, you'll see it on the medium. That's the first indication that, wait, stop. And then they can treat the water once they identify what it is.
Okay.
Another step we are taking that I didn't indicate earlier, we have a diving team coming in tonight to physically inspect the inside of the reservoir. And so they'll be beginning that tonight, and to see if there's something actually physically in there that can be identified. So it's an additional, excuse me, an additional step to try to assure that there isn't anything inside the reservoir.
How deep is it?
25 feet.
25 feet.
One atmosphere.
Okay. All right. If there are no other questions or comments from council?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Seaman?
Yes.
Schlesner?
Yes.
Jensen?
Yes.
Cox?
Yes.
Tate? Haley?
Yes.
We are adjourned.